Good evening, all. Nice to see all your faces.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
So we are recording, but we're missing a couple commissioners still, Commissioner Roman and Commissioner Balbone. Give it just another, it's not quite 6 o'clock yet. And I think our guest speakers are joining now. Let's see. I think Commissioner Balbone, are you with us? I think we're just missing Carrie. And I know she was on a flight, Chair, and was going to try to call in. So if she got tangled up at the airport at all, she may be running late. So I'll defer to you if you want to wait a minute or two. I see Fires joining now. We have Sheriff. We have Block by Block.
Let's go ahead and start.
Okay, great.
Okay, I call this meeting to order. It's Public Safety Commission meeting, December 13th, 2021. Commissioner Oliver, would you mind saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Balbone, as I mentioned, I think is stuck at the airport. Commissioner Hallman.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver. Commissioner Roman.
Here.
Commissioner Soon Cheong.
Here.
Vice Chair Roche.
Here.
Chair Berger.
Here. Are there any adjournment requests? No. Okay, approval of the agenda. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Roche, seconded by Commissioner Oliver.
And for roll call, Commissioner Hallman.
Here.
Approval of the agenda, excuse me.
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Oliver.
Yes.
Commissioner Roman.
Yes.
Commissioner Soon Cheong.
Yes.
Vice Chair Roche.
Yes.
Chair Berger.
Yes.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes. Can we get a motion? Approval of the minutes, roll call.
Okay, I'll make a motion. Yes, I'm so moved.
Second.
Okay, it was, the motion was by Vice Chair Roche and Commissioner Holman, I believe, seconded that. Roll call.
Commissioner Hallman.
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver.
Yes.
Commissioner Roman.
Yes.
Commissioner Soon Cheong.
You are on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Vice Chair Roche,
Yes.
Chair Berger.
Yes. And do we have any public comments?
I do not have any speakers that have signed up, but we can take a moment in the Zoom to see if we have any members of the public who would like to speak. You will be given 3 minutes to speak at this point. You can also speak on other items throughout the agenda if you're not prepared to speak at this time.
Just raise your hand if you would like to public comment. Anybody? Okay, we don't have any. Commissioner comments? Nope. Vice Chair Roche.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to quickly thank Karen Ayers for, as one of the organizers, I had the privilege of, or I should say the honor of attending the World AIDS Day on December 1st. It was a story circle at the AIDS monument that plans on being installed here in West Hollywood at the West Hollywood Park. And it was incredibly beautiful to share stories and to be in space with community. So I just want to honor Karen. She's on the Rent Stabilization Commission. So that's it. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any more commissioner comments? Let's move on to unfinished business, 9A. This will be reimagining policing and promoting equity presentation from Dignity and Power Now. Are they
Chair-
on?
Yes, thank you. And Yvette, is it Ale, your last name? Great.
Yes.
We're so honored to have you all come tonight. And if you'd like to kind of quickly introduce yourself and anyone else from your team this evening, and then the floor will be yours. And we can also take questions from the commission when you're done with your presentation. And do you have anything that you would need a screen share for? Because we could make you a
Yes.
co-host. Okay, let me
Yes,
do that
would be
quickly.
great.
Okay, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
If I could share my screen here. Wonderful. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Yvette Ale. My pronouns are they, them. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy at Dignity and Power Now. We're a Los Angeles-based national organization that does advocacy and policy work, as well as direct services for those that are formerly incarcerated, the families of those that are formerly and currently incarcerated, harmed by police violence, as well as intercommunal violence. Our organization represents folks that have been criminalized, as well as the survivors of harm. So we work at that intersection through a public health approach to actually addressing the root causes of harm. So today I will be speaking on our model for reimagining public safety, as well as the work that we're doing within LA County. I'm actually a commissioner on 3 LA County commissions, including the Gender Responsive Advisory Committee that addresses all things gender within the criminal legal system, the Public Safety Realignment Team that looks at AB 109 funding allocations, and the new LA County pretrial work group. So I work in tandem with the District Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, as well as the courts to redesign LA County's pretrial system. And I'm going to be speaking more about that today. I want to start off with a quote by a scholar and educator, Mariam Kaba, who says, "Cages confine people, not the conditions that facilitated their harms or the mentalities that perpetuate violence." So here, Mariam Kaba is really speaking to the need to address the root causes of harm. And this is the framework that we use to reimagine justice and public safety. It's about responding to harm without creating more harm, transforming the conditions that led to harm. So asking ourselves the question, how did that harm come to be? Because we know that for decades, we've been responding to public health issues with a criminalization and punitive response. And every time someone goes to jail or a harm happens in our community, these are public health and policy failures. And we've just used the criminal justice system to cover up those failures. The next principle is applying public health approaches to public safety. building community-based systems of care. So really decentralizing those systems so our local communities can have access to care, whether it's mental health care, biomedical care, access to education. Having a decentralized community-based model actually is a more effective way of delivering services, as we've learned through the approaches that came out of the AIDS epidemic, where community-based services, direct services, street services were highly effective in addressing those harms. And finally, rejecting the victim-perpetrator binary in recognition that we all experience and cause harm. And this is a really important concept, because many of the communities that are highly criminalized, we're talking about Black, Brown, immigrant people, trans community. These are also the communities that are at high risk of receiving harm, whether in their communities or by law enforcement. So really breaking that binary and saying there's not just perpetrators and victims, or perpetrators and survivors, that folks often exist at the intersection of those experiences. I'm going to address a few myths because there's been a lot of news coverage around rising crime, or also representations of California and Los Angeles County throughout the nation as bastions of liberal or progressive policy. So I want to address those myths. So the first is that California is a progressive state on social justice issues, when the reality is California incarcerates a higher percentage of its people than almost any democracy on earth. Hundreds of thousands of people are incarcerated in California on any given day. Myth number two, LA County is leading the country on progressive reforms. And although LA County has launched the Alternative to Incarceration initiative and started to implement a lot of progressive policies, the reality is that LA County continues to be the largest jail system in the country, with an average incarcerated population of 15,000. Although we've seen slight drops during the pandemic, we've also seen those initial drops slowly beginning to creep up. Not only does LA County have the title of largest jail system in the country, we also have the largest incarcerated population of people with mental health needs. In fact, more people with mental health needs in this country are incarcerated in LA County jails than in any other mental health institution anywhere in the country. We also have the largest law enforcement agencies and the highest number of killings by law enforcement. Myth number three, crime is on the rise in California. I'm sure you've all been hearing those statistics coming out about increases in crime, when in fact, crime rates have been steadily declining since the 1970s. In fact, California's overall crime rate fell 6% in 2020, reaching its lowest level ever recorded. Violent crime rate was 40% of the state's peak rate recorded in 1992. Property crime rate was 30% of the peak rate in 1980. In 2019, homicide rate marked the lowest recorded rate since 1966. California's homicide rate has also been below the national average since 2014. And between 2019 and 2020, property crime declined by 8% in California. So what about LA County crime rates? So from 2019 to 2020, violent crime remained static. Robberies went down 12% and burglaries went down 9%. But it's important to contextualize any uptick in crime, whether it be month to month or year by year. We need to look at the overall trends in crime within our county and within our state. And in fact, they have been at historic lows. Myth number four, tough on crime policies and more law enforcement keep communities safe. So we can look at this chart from West Hollywood, that there's been a steady increase in investment into law enforcement over the last several years. But this actually has not translated to community feeling safer in West Hollywood. In fact, if you compare 2013 to 2018, community members in West Hollywood have actually felt less safe in their community. And if you look at the sheriff's recent data of arrests here in West Hollywood, you see that there's actually been a decline in arrests within the city of West Hollywood. There have been reports by the sheriff's department an increase in reported crime, but the actual arrest numbers have not actually increased. And so we're seeing a lack of response to the perceived notions of safety, but also to the reports of harm happening in the community. And this is because incarceration and policing cannot, will not, and are not designed to prevent harm or provide healing. They are reactionary responses to harm when it happens, but don't actually address the root causes of why harm happens in our communities or provide healing. So policing does not equal accountability. In fact, fewer than half of serious crimes are reported to police. And there are a variety of reasons why crime is not reported to police. But if you look at those communities that are most vulnerable, if we look at Black, Brown, immigrant, and trans communities, over and over again, the statistics and the data shows that those communities feel less safe reaching out to law enforcement. So when harm happens in those communities, they do not see law enforcement as an adequate vehicle because they're afraid of retaliation, or in the cases of domestic violence, specifically by Black and trans communities, they fear actual retribution or arrest for surviving or for speaking out against the person causing them harm. About 11% of all serious crimes result in an arrest, but only 2% end in conviction. So when we look at the scope of harm, most harm is never reported. The harm that is reported to law enforcement, only 2% end in conviction. And incarceration does not equal healing. In fact, it perpetuates trauma. Incarceration triggers and worsens symptoms of mental illness. And the vast majority of folks that end up incarcerated will inevitably return back to their communities and will return back with more trauma. High community levels of incarceration rates also affect the children from those communities. So not only are the people that are incarcerated impacted negatively, but the communities and specifically their children are impacted negatively, including increases in child poverty rates and worse cognitive outcomes. And in fact, higher incarceration in your county actually has worse outcomes. Incarceration in California dropped by 46% since 2000, and property crime and violent crime rates declined by 32% and 29% respectively. So as we've been decreasing incarceration in California, we've also seen a steady decrease in crime rates. But those counties that lock up more people per capita experience twice as many homicides per capita than low incarceration counties, flying in the face of tough on crime rhetoric. State taxpayers spend $3.2 billion more every year for high incarceration counties' reliance on prisons. And variation in crime across counties reflects differences in local practices and conditions such as poverty, COVID-19 impacts, responses to crime, and the volume of visitors. So what drives crime down? Well, research has shown that aging population, increased wages, increased employment, increased graduation rates, increased consumer confidence, and increased access to healthcare are responsible for decades for decreases in crime rates over the last 20 years. And so in fact, addressing public health needs, addressing the root causes of why communities are destabilized is actually a more effective vehicle to addressing crime rates than more incarceration, more police spending. So what do we know about LA County incarceration? So right now, I took a snapshot of today's jail populations, or the populations from just a few days ago. And in fact, total population is around a little under 13,000 right now. But I want to really highlight that of the jail population, nearly half of our jail population right now is under the mental health population category. That means that these are folks with high levels of mental health needs. It's also important to look at racial disparities in LA County. So across the board, from men's jail facilities to the women's jail, we see a disproportionate number of Black community members incarcerated. So Black folks are about 8% of our population here in LA County, but the population within the jails hovers around 30%. And it's also important to look at the K6G unit. So the K6G unit in the LA County jail system is where our LGBTQ community members are incarcerated. So like I mentioned before, 8% of our county is Black, 30% of our jail population is Black, but those that are categorized as LGBTQ account for 40% of the people inside of this unit that are Black. And so we see these racial discrepancies in policing practices translating over to the jail population, specifically when we're talking about LGBTQ people. It's also important to look at the case status of those that are in jail. So this is a chart that shows the different categories of folks that are incarcerated. And by and large, the most significant population within LA County jails is the pre-trial population. And so a person that is pre-trial means that they have not been convicted of the crime that they've been accused of, but they are being incarcerated prior to their conviction. And there's a variety of reasons why people are incarcerated prior to their conviction. But by and large, the use of money bail is one of the primary drivers of pretrial incarceration. So when people cannot afford bail, they end up incarcerated before their conviction. And this is the population, and this is the strategy that I'm going to focus on for you all today. So pretrial detention is harmful. Not only does it violate the tenet of our legal system of presumption of innocence, it also harms people's mental health and physical health. So even one day being incarcerated can have dire effects on your mental health and your physical health, especially right now during COVID-19. Pretrial detention impacts people's jobs, housing, ability to parent, and much more. Pretrial detention pressures people to plead guilty, regardless of their innocence, just to go home. In fact, in California, 92% of cases are pled out. So 92% of people don't even get their day in court, because when faced with the decision of being incarcerated pre-trial or just taking a conviction and going home, folks take that conviction and don't actually fight their case. Pretrial detention undermines the presumption of innocence, like I mentioned, and it does not address the needs of survivors. Pretrial detention perpetuates racial and gender equity. Black people are disproportionately locked up pre-trial with higher bail amounts than their white counterparts. During COVID-19, the length of pretrial detention has increased, especially for Black women. In fact, Black women have the longest length of stay of any population in the jail system across gender and across race. 56% of women incarcerated in LA County are held pre-trial. So the highest rates of pretrial incarceration are for people inside of the women's jails, compared to 37% of the general population. This is a snapshot, of the current LA County pretrial system that the LA County is currently working to shift. So right now there's a presumption of detention, not of innocence. There's unaffordable bail. There's the use of risk assessments, which are algorithms that use discrete facts about an individual, such as their age, their employment status, and even their zip code to determine how risky they are to release. So when we take a look at the types of populations that are targeted by law enforcement in our county and what neighborhoods they come from, they're predominantly Black, low income, and brown neighborhoods. And when we use a risk assessment that looks at their employment status, their housing status, whether or not they've been arrested before, and that is determining their risk, much like a credit score determines your eligibility. That skews who the system is seeing as risky and who the system is deeming worthy of release. There's a high level of judicial discretion. So judges can unilaterally decide whether they're going to preventatively detain someone or release them. There's high levels of probation supervision. So right now, all the pretrial, quote unquote, pretrial services in LA County are run by the probation department. And folks that are released pretrial are often placed on probation supervision. And again, probation is typically used post-conviction when someone's re-entering out after having spent time in jail. But we are using probation pretrial before someone has been convicted of anything. There's no return to court support, no transportation, no childcare. There's no support for survivors. So survivors of any harm in the community, including law enforcement violence, have very little access to services from the county. Most of those services for survivors are run through the district attorney's office. But a lot of the stipulations around getting funding or getting support from the county relies on a conviction. there's no funding for community-based services. So the community-based service that could support with transportation to court, with childcare, with mental health needs, right now there is no system in LA County to provide those supportive services. But the LA County Alternatives to Incarceration Work Group's final report, which was released and adopted by the board in 2020, provides some great recommendations to addressing this. So the third strategy within the report, recommendation 53, really focuses on improving and expanding return to court support services to reduce failures to appear. So the primary concern of a judge is, will this person return to court? And so if the person has supportive systems, then they have a higher rate of return to court. And in fact, when we look at other jurisdictions like Washington, D.C., they implemented just text message reminders. And they had a return to court rate of 85%, simply with a text message reminder. Because when someone is arrested, especially if they're houseless, they get a slip of paper. And if they lose that slip of paper, if they don't have a home address to receive updates around their court date, they have a very slim chance of actually making it to court. But if they are provided with a caseworker, a public health approach, if they're provided with transportation to court, with someone to sit with them in court, there's a higher chance that folks will actually return to court and go through the process successfully. Recommendation 55 focuses on developing a needs and strengths system of pretrial release. So instead of using risks, using data about someone's housing instability or someone's mental health status or someone's lack of employment, looking at what does this person need? Do they need mental health care? Do they need employment support? So doing a needs and strength assessment actually addresses the root causes of why someone came into contact with the system to begin with. Recommendation 56 institutes a presumption of pretrial release for all individuals, so upholding the presumption of innocence, especially for people with clinical behavioral health disorders, whenever possible and appropriate. But this is the key part, including a warm handoff to community-based systems of care. The warm handoff to systems of care based in the community through a decentralized model is a much more effective process, and not only supporting someone's return to court, but actually helping stabilize their life, access to housing, and other types of services such as drug treatment. The CASA model, it really takes these key recommendations from the ATI report and provides the framework for LA County that focuses on supportive resource over supervision, trauma-informed approaches, individual empowerment and self-determination, and all of this housed within an independent pretrial agency. And this report was developed in collaboration with UCLA School of Law. So I won't go into all the details because I know I'm sure we're short on time, but this is the overall framework: robust evidentiary pretrial hearings. So really putting the presumption on the district attorney's office to show that someone is a risk to the community through a risk of physical violence, not just looking at whether their housing instability means that they won't return to court, but are they an actual risk to the community? And focusing on pretrial services that are trauma-informed and housed in the community. So here's a little walkthrough. I'll just do one for you all of how this model will work. So here in this scenario, Alice was stopped by a police officer for an alleged misdemeanor assault. The officer writes her a citation with a date to go to court. The officer also gives her information about CASA, and CASA is the community-based pretrial service system. And so she receives a court day reminder, emergency day of court support, linkage to supportive services if needed. And so for folks that are charged with misdemeanors, they don't even go to jail. They get a citation, they get a slip with a notification, and they go back to court. Here's another example. Jeremy is arrested for an alleged felony assault with a deadly weapon. Jeremy is booked into custody. Bail is set an amount that Jeremy cannot afford. And again, Jeremy is presumed innocent in this case. So he is given a strength and needs assessment within 8 hours. That strength and needs assessment then informs what's called an individualized safety plan, because we don't know if Jeremy would actually be harmful to a specific person in the community. But we want to make sure that if harm is possible, especially in domestic violence situations, that this person has an individualized safety plan and that the alleged survivor has an individualized safety plan as well. Over and over again, when we talk to survivors of domestic violence, what we hear is that the number one thing that could have kept them safe is housing. As a survivor of domestic violence, I intimately know that without having access to employment, without having access to safe housing, apart from the person that's causing me harm, I'm going to continue being harmed by that person. And the criminal legal system actually isn't addressing my needs, which is actually having access to housing, trauma support, mental health support, and employment support. So through this model, we're addressing both the needs of the alleged person that committed the harm and the alleged survivor. It's important for us to also specifically take a look at gender justice in LA County as it pertains to the criminal legal system. I shared some statistics around the impacts on trans and LGBTQ community members, and I really want to dive a little bit deeper on this. So 50 years ago, there was not a single cis woman in US jails in nearly 3/4 of all US counties. Today, cis women are the fastest growing population in US prisons and jails. Here in LA County, approximately 1,300 cis women are in custody each day, and an additional 382 people in the K6G unit, which is the LGBTQ unit. And while local population data is not available to definitively determine the number of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans and gender nonconforming intersex people in LA County custody, based on national data, the LGB and TGI populations appear significant. A recent study based on the National Inmate Survey indicated that 1/3 of incarcerated cis women identify as lesbian or bisexual. And US jails were not designed for cis women or LGBTQ people. Among the cis women population, a majority are mothers, often the primary caretakers of their children, and disproportionately women of color. And while research on these populations, particularly LGBT and TGI population, is limited, it's clear that women, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals in custody have experienced high levels of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse prior to their justice involvement. And LGBT women are overrepresented at every stage of the criminal legal system. And here are a few statistics. 86% of women in jail have experienced sexual violence, 77% have experienced intimate partner violence, and more than 1 in 5 trans women have been incarcerated during their lifetime, and the likelihood is still higher for Black and brown women, as I shared earlier. Here's some more data from the RAND Corporation. 76% of cis women held at CRDF, which is our women's jail, have mental health needs. That's a high population of folks and could be safely diverted. So although having mental health needs, they can be safely diverted to programs like those offered by the Office of Diversion and Reentry in LA County. And between 45 and 60% of women are awaiting trial. So we're talking about pre-trial. They have not been convicted. And according to Vera Institute of Justice, Black people are 8% of the county, 30% of the jail population, and 40% of those incarcerated by K6G. I thought it was important to reiterate that disproportionate number of LGBTQ Black folks in our jail system, it doesn't compare to any other population. And it's also important to see why women are funneling into the jail system. So the top 5 charges, according to UCLA Million Dollar Hoods, are all acts of survival: possession of a controlled substance, driving on a suspended license, theft, shopping, larceny, failure to appear, and DUI. All can be mitigated if the underlying unmet needs of these populations was actually addressed. So I'll end here. I wanted to share with you all Ted Conover's book, New Jack, and how it illustrates the idea of budgets as imagined futures made real, and the ways that alternative futures reflect different ideas about who we are. So Conover is talking to a person in prison he calls Larson, who is locked up in Sing Sing, one of New York's oldest and most deadly jails, much like LA County's Men's Central Jail. There has been a news story that the governor of New York is going to spend money building new, clean prisons. And Conover is surprised that Larson opposed that spending. And Larson explains, anyone planning a prison they're not going to build for 10 or 15 years is planning for a child, planning prison for somebody who's a child right now. So you see, they've already given up on that child. They already expect that child to fail. Now, why? If we could keep that from happening, if we could send that child to a good school and help his family stay together, if we could do that, why are we spending that money to put him in jail? This quote really illustrates the importance of considering the budgets and the policies that you all are considering and implementing now, and the impacts they can have 10, 20, 30 years from now. And so really looking at what we're investing in, whether it's more incarceration, more policing, or addressing the root causes of harm, addressing the underlying unmet needs of the community of West Hollywood, what that can mean for the generations to come. And I'll end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yvette. Do we have any questions? No, thank you, Yvette.
I just have a comment. I just want to thank Yvette so much for this, for your presentation. I've followed closely with Justice LA for many, many years, and I really appreciate the work they do and the work that you do. And it does not, the work that you do and the organization does is seen. We see it and we see you. So thank you for taking the time with all of us to share this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yvette, thank you so much. And it's obvious that you put a lot of work into that presentation. Would you mind sending that to our liaison, Kristen Cook, because there's a lot of good information in there, and it may take us a little while for it to sink in. And we may even have questions to email you later or something. So that would be really appreciated. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Oh, we have a question. Carrie Balbone, Commissioner Balbone.
Hey, thank you so much for the presentation. I did have a question. You talked about resources for folks who are pending trial and possibly those who are coming out of incarceration. What services are being wrapped around them at this point? And I know that DHCS is starting to look at special services for the Medi-Cal population who are recently incarcerated. And I'm just wondering, is there a shortage of services to support those folks, like safe housing? I know you said transportation, but what are some of the things that are being done on that front?
Yeah, I really appreciate this question. So right now, I hate to, take a negative light, but LA County is not doing enough. The city of LA is not doing enough. All of our local jurisdictions are not doing enough for those reentering and those that are currently on pre-trial. So the services that are available are by and large provided by community-based organizations like the Trans Latina Coalition, like the Youth Justice Coalition, like Dignity and Power Now, like many of our grassroots organizations that are funding those services through grants, through our own fundraising. We're doing mutual aid with our communities through services, but the systems are not set up in LA County. I do want to say, with one caveat, the Office of Diversion and Reentry in LA County does phenomenal work, especially for the population of folks that have high levels of mental health need. So ODR, as we call it, Office of Diversion and Reentry, has an over 86% success rate in diverting folks with the highest level of mental health need and this is important, the highest level charges. So we're talking about, quote unquote, violent crime. These folks are those folks that are charged with those serious and violent charges, serious and violent felonies, and have the highest level of mental health need, and yet they have an 86% success rate. And so they provide wraparound services, permanent supportive housing, mental health care, but they're underfunded. So they desperately need more funding because they have the ability to scale up quickly enough to divert the mental health population of LA County, over 3,000 people that have been deemed eligible for diversion that just do not have a bed outside of jail. And so we're not doing enough. But the types of services for the pretrial population, some of which I mentioned, a text message reminder, having a peer navigator, peer navigation from a credible messenger. We've seen this in the public health arena for decades, right? Having a credible messenger that delivers the services, that provides that navigation, that helps connect them to housing, to other types of care is highly effective, but that's not the current system. Right now, the system relies on probation supervision. So folks are just supervised by probation. So they get drug tested, search and seizure. They have all of these conditions. They haven't been convicted, but they have all these conditions of release that make it very difficult for them to actually return to court or to not, quote unquote, reoffend. Because if they have substance use issues and part of their conditions of release is like you can't use substances, they're not receiving services to help them with substances, but if they use substances, they go right back into jail. So it's tautological logic, right? And so it's not actually addressing their needs. The vast majority of folks that come into contact with the legal system are folks that have mental health needs, substance use needs, and housing needs. If those three things were addressed by LA County and our local jurisdictions, we'd be able to massively reduce the jail population and massively reduce crime rates, because often, like I shared before, the top 5 charges for women going into the jail system are acts of survival. Sex work is criminalized. Lack of access to employment, which translates to quote unquote theft. These are all things that can be mitigated when folks have access to good employment, job training, and other types of services.
Commissioner Oliver?
Well, thank you so much, Yvette. I really appreciated your whole presentation. I could listen to you for hours. This is such an important, seriously, like, and I don't say that on Zoom very often. But I mean, there's such a focus in our society on punitive action. You know, everything has to have this punishment to it, and the services that you're describing, I mean, they're like so painfully obvious, but I feel like we have such a knee-jerk reaction that, like, oh no, that's, you know, coddling the offender, coddling the person who offended. I would like to know, and maybe this is a different, you know, bigger conversation, but what can we do here? You know, we're a little tiny, you know, little city. What can we do here, and what can we do as a commission to take positive steps to help move, you know, away from that model and toward the one that you're describing?
This is a great question. And so with LA County, the way that LA County moves is very slowly. And just sitting on these commissions, being part of the conversations around alternatives to incarceration, the county over and over again wants proof of concept. So they want pilot programs that demonstrate that these new public health, healing first, care first approaches actually work. And so West Hollywood, as you know, small as you describe it, has a really large impact in demonstrating, or could have a really large impact in demonstrating, that a different approach works, which could have reverberating effects throughout, not just LA County, because wherever LA County goes, so goes California. We really have a lot of influence. And so if West Hollywood is able to create a pilot program that focuses on pretrial services, right? We can't impact the way that judges are going to choose to preventatively detain someone or not, but we can influence, because if we show to a judge, oh, this community member will get connected to resources in West Hollywood. West Hollywood will support providing housing, connecting them to mental health support and substance use support. West Hollywood is the ideal model for what LA County can look like. That would have a huge impact in being able to expedite the implementation of the model that we've co-designed with community members, with public health experts, public defenders, legal scholars at UCLA. We've done years of modeling and designing this pilot, but there's just such a hesitation to investing money from LA County into that vision. But if you all can demonstrate that it works, and you all have the muscle memory, West Hollywood has such a deep history of innovative public health approaches that we can look to inform what can be implemented to reduce incarceration and reduce the number of people that have to go into the criminal legal system instead of just accessing care. That would be huge.
Okay, any more commissioner comments before I go to the public comments? Commissioner Hallman.
Yvette, thank you. Your presentation was beyond comprehensive and extremely alarming. Why do you feel that LA County is so hesitant in trying to adopt a new model, a different model, or something else? Because obviously what's being implemented is not working?
Yeah, this is a complex question, but I'll be forthcoming. So to implement this model countywide, it will take money. Measure J, which was passed by the vast majority of voters here in LA County, actually allotted for that money to implement ATI, right? 10% of our locally generated revenue, just our local revenue, not federal dollars, not state dollars, just 10% of a small slice of our revenue to use for alternatives to incarceration. The court shot it down, but to the board's credit, to the Board of Supervisors' credit, they kept implementing what they call now the Care First Community Investment Initiative to start implementing the recommendations of the ATI report. Here's the kicker. It will require shifting money out of law enforcement, out of incarceration, because as our jail population goes down, we should be capturing those dollars, right? And investing them into public health responses. It's going to require a major shift. And this is my take. The Board of Supervisors, they are responsive to law enforcement. They're responsive to unions or law enforcement special interest groups that can potentially fund races that unseat them. And so it's going to take both political will on the part of the board to actually make those shifts of funding, because it's not enough for them to adopt the report and say, yes, we believe in Care First, which they've done. They've done over and over again. We believed in a Care First vision, but they actually haven't put money where their mouth is. And we see this happening over and over again with our political leaders. So it's important to provide a pathway to that. And this is a whole nother conversation, which I'd love to talk to you all about, called a just transition. So a just transition actually creates a pathway to move from a punitive economy to a Care First economy. We borrowed from the environmental justice movement, which created the framework for moving from an extractive economy like coal and other types of extractive resource generation to a regenerative economy that focuses on green energy. So it's about retraining employees of those systems, retraining law enforcement, retraining folks that work inside of the jails, incentivizing retirement for those that are close to retirement age, providing incentivizing that retraining work for folks that are younger, not filling back positions. So as we reduce those positions in law enforcement, not backfilling them, not filling them up. So there's various strategies, especially around emergency management, because law enforcement has a lot of training in emergency management. And with COVID, with rise in fires and other environmental effects on our stability, providing more resources to emergency management would be a great transition. And so it's about creating the mechanisms to actually reduce those systems' budgets while still addressing the needs of those that are employed by these systems. Because it's my belief that everybody deserves a well-paying, thriving wage job. Everybody does, including those that work in law enforcement. Many of them are Black and brown and from our poor communities and just didn't have any other access to employment that actually pays them well. And there's so many communities that are reliant on prisons as their primary vehicle for economic stability. And so providing a different pathway will really be the way that we transition the funding and provide a political mechanism that addresses what I think the Board of Supervisors and leadership fears, that we'll have massive unemployment of folks that were formerly employed by these systems, and that will bite them in the butt come election time.
Any more commissioner comments? Okay, we'll go to public comment. Adam Darvish, you have 3 minutes, Adam.
Great. Thank you so much, Yvette. Great job. A lot of things to cover. I think the LA County jail size or number of jail cells, that was per capita, I'm assuming, because LA County is the largest, it's almost a country compared to a lot of countries. So I'm sure that's based on the population. But overall, I see our problem, and I personally experienced something that got me involved with Lieutenant Mulder and our police station and our city hall. I think as a society, we need to look at a deep dive into our foundation, the values of upbringing the kids. We have in the minority groups, especially Black populations or Hispanic or others in the lower socioeconomic regions. they're single dads, single moms, and the kids are not raised to a level where they can have full support and funding from our government for their school and education. All of that, I think, plays into it. But I agree that we have to work with our police department and kind of understand their challenges too, because not everything is their fault. You mentioned the jail and the court system here that just takes people into prison and releases them early, and then our police force has to arrest them again and put them back in, and somebody may get killed in the interim. So that was my case that almost got killed. But again, great job. But I think that as a society, we need to look at the whole thing from they say cradle to whatever you call it, from newborn to death. So that's really sort of our foundation, or money, that resources that we put into our population, from young adults to the elderly. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Yvette, do you want to respond to that, or?
I mean, I do agree that we have to look at the full picture, and investment, or rather divestment, from Black, Brown, immigrant, poor communities has destabilized their communities. But we also have to look at our long history of incarceration and policing, and the root of that, which is really rooted in our history of enslavement, our history of settler colonialism, which destabilized communities and kept them from their own lands. I mean, we're on Tongva land right now, and Tongva people still exist and don't have access to the resources and services that they should. And so I agree that services need to be addressed. The lack of investment in those communities need to be addressed. And that when we actually talk to law enforcement officials, they will gladly say, I am not equipped to handle mental health crises. I am not a trained mental health professional. I should not be responding to these things. And so we're also over relying on law enforcement to address public health issues. We should be really scaling up our mental health experts in LA County. Our responders should be mental health experts. They should be clinically trained professionals. They should be experts in domestic violence that actually de-escalate situations and actually help address the survivor's needs. And so, yeah, we do need to see the full picture. And it's been an over-reliance on criminalization and incarceration that's kept us from actually investing the money that we really need in education, in housing, and all the things that we know actually keep us safe.
Okay, thank you. Adam, you can put your hand down unless you have another comment. No? Okay, any more questions? Again, Yvette, thank you so much for all the time that you put into this and for coming and presenting to us. And we look forward to your presentation. If you could email it to Kristen Cook.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me. Have a really good night.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Report from the fire department. Chief Smith, are you here? Chief Smith.
I am. There.
Okay, we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Perfect. Well, good evening, and just get ready for our storm that we're having. So we're in a operational readiness mode. We have augmented staffing and internal plan in place for this winter storm that's going to affect Southern California. I'll just start out with that. So do your own self-preparedness and make sure that you have safety measures in your home and have that self-reliance in your home for you. So looking at November, one thing that's of a concern to me is the amount of rubbish fires we've had that has been increasing continually over the past year. And so at the City Council 6-month report, I spoke to this, and I'm going to address it here, that we've had quite a significant increase in rubbish fires and outdoor fires. And your West Hollywood firefighters do a significant job and a great job in suppressing those. But at some point in time with those fires, they have a high potential to cause damage outside just the rubbish bin or dumpster that they're contained to. So the swift action by your firefighters are good, but you know how busy West Hollywood can get year round. So that's of a concern to me. I've talked to West Hollywood sheriffs. We've been in cooperation with them, of course, on that identification needs. So your sheriff's department and your fire department, which are out on the streets every day, we always have our eyes open and we're looking around to gain that situational awareness every day to look so we can make a quick response. So I just want everybody here to be cognizant to the fact that we do have an increase in outdoor type fires, and I can't pin it to one cause. It's just, and the cause becomes irrelevant. It's the nature of, we have relevancy to the amount that are increasing throughout the city of West Hollywood. As far as the rest of the month of November, everything has been pretty routine. Our emergency medical services that we are providing, it's busy. It's a busy city, and we strive to give the best customer service delivery for those people that call 911 that are having a medical type emergency. So if there's any feedback, we'd appreciate any of that, that we could have that conversation through Kristen, of course, or anybody's welcome to contact myself or Megan Courier on any questions regarding that. So that's what I have. I'll stop with me. I'll let Megan discuss a few items with some of the community questions that were asked earlier, and I'll lead off with her right now.
Before you go on, Megan, does anybody have any questions about the rubbish fires or anything like that? I do, Chief. These rubbish fires, are they generally in like a trash can, or what's the nature of those?
Most of them have been in larger roll-off bin type of dumpster that are 5-yard dumpsters, as they're called. So they're the outdoor type of dumpsters that larger occupancies use for their trash service. So they're not.
Okay. How would, and you said you don't know how these are getting started.
Yeah,
How
it's hard to
might we
determine
prevent
cause
this?
unless they're seen. It's just, it can be, I'm not saying that everything is malicious, because it may not be. There's a lot of accidents going on when you have the density and population of the city of West Hollywood. So how can you help? Really, it's just early identification, and there's measures in place, hopefully, that whatever occupancy is out there, that they have a plan in place, or how they determine how their tenants, whether it's a commercial occupancy or residential occupancy, manage that trash. But the biggest thing is a lot of these are in areas that are secured, because there is a standard for having those dumpsters based upon the construction type where they can be located. But so hopefully that answers your question.
So they might be behind a gated community. Is that where a lot of them are?
No, they're throughout the city, so I can't pin it to a gated community. There's a lot of areas that they're in, and you have the report of the exact location. So if you wanted us to identify, or you could with a report on their location of where they're at, that can be done, and look at the site specific occupancy type.
Are they repeats in some of these locations?
Some of them are repeats in those locations over the years. I can't say that we've had within the last month 3 fires in the same dumpster. They're pretty continuous throughout the city in different areas.
Okay, so would you, if I saw a fire, would you suggest that I grab that dumpster and pull it away from the building, or what would you say to do?
I would say based upon you reporting it first, and give the dispatcher the valid information, whether it is proximal to a building or not, because that helps formulate the response of what the fire captain can assign resources, what he or she may or may not have to deal with. So that would be one of the questions or information that could be offered, is whether it's next to or threatening any structure and or type of building.
Okay, block by block, maybe you guys can keep your eyes open, and the sheriffs. Any more questions on this, Commissioner Oliver?
Yes, I had a question. I saw a vehicle on fire. There was no one around it. and I immediately grabbed my my phone and dialed 911 because there's no one on the scene and it was completely engulfed. The response was definitely like I guess I had gotten a lot of calls on it. So the 911 operator was very, I think maybe overwhelmed, but it was if that was the first time I'd ever called on anything, I might be dissuaded from calling again based on that interaction. I guess two questions. One, I don't see that. I believe it was before the first of the month. I don't see it. It was on Hayworth and Santa Monica.
Okay.
And I wanted to know if that, why that isn't in the report, and if it, unless it was after the first of the month. And then also in terms of calling 911, it seems like that should be something that should be like right off the bat. You see a fire, like that's the first response. Beyond saving somebody, if there's somebody, in immediate danger.
Right. So just remember, when you call 911, it is routed different ways. So if it's routed via landline, it goes to sheriff's. It is routed via cell phone. It could go to CHP. And so it doesn't go straight to the fire department.
Sure.
So it's fielded first by law enforcement to find out the nature of the emergency. And then it's routed to the correct agency that may have to deal with the situation. So meaning that if you're in West Hollywood and or you're a resident in West Hollywood, you're West Hollywood centric, but you're actually at the border in Beverly Hills. And so just for you knowing and having institutional knowledge of where you're at, not every resident or people that interact or transient through a community or town, it's routed through the sheriff. So it goes through a series of events so they can get and route the 911 call to the appropriate authority. So if you wanted your eyes open, I would be glad to volunteer you to go with me, and I'll take you to our dispatch center so you can see the guts and the framework of what a dispatch center looks like and the paces they go through. And I think you'd have a little bit more clarity.
Sure.
And it is very, very efficient. But when it gets busy, it does overload. It does overload the system. But we can look at, if you come up with a date, and if we miss it on the report, I apologize for that. And if it's after the date, we'll look forward to talking about it next month.
And also, in terms of it not being on the report, sometimes within our reporting system, it's called NFIRS, National Fire Incident Reporting System, we things can get mislabeled, or they can get mislabeled as like a medical call if it comes in first as a medical call, and then they realize that there's a fire attached to it. So I can go back through and look through the system, try to find it that way.
Okay. The only reason I ask, is just to see, we're talking about a pattern, and wanted to see if there was any information on that particular fire, and also to make sure no one was hurt too. I didn't see anybody in the vehicle, and when the fire department came and they were super efficient, got the hoses set up and got the fire out really quickly. So and they didn't, they weren't breaking in to pull anybody out. So it seemed like no one was hurt, but I want to get some information.
And if you can send Kristen like the details that you remember, and she can forward it to me, and I can get you any information you need.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
So
Chief Smith.
I also was gonna give my little update if you didn't have anything else for Chief Smith. Is that?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Hold on a second. Hold
Okay.
on a second, Megan. One question quick. Chief Smith, maybe maybe you, Megan, or maybe staff knows this. I looked into the 911 number because of the 988 number they're trying to work to connect those together. And the 911 number is being revamped. You're right. It's got problems with it right now, even. But I couldn't see anything where any kind of dates about where they are with the status of that. Do any of you know?
I do not.
By chance?
I do not.
Okay, Kristen, maybe I have the link to that place. Kristen, maybe you guys can look into that and let us know what the status is on that. but I know that the alternative crisis response is really trying to connect with that, because there's some components and technology that they need to have happen with the 911 number, and they need to work on that first. And secondly is if for the public that's listening to this and the commissioners, one thing that I learned after the fire in our building was to mount your own fire extinguisher about 3 feet from the front door where you exit. The reason why is because sometimes you need to crawl to get that, and where you can grab that, your own fire extinguisher, really quickly. And a lot of times if these rubbish fires are starting right in your building, you can get on that so fast if you know right where your fire extinguisher is. So, okay, Megan, and thank you guys for putting this together, this list, Megan. I know we've been looking forward to that you guys were going to work on for us.
You're welcome.
Yes. So yeah, I'm Megan Courier. I'm the Community Services Liaison for Division 7 of LA County Fire. I just wanted to give you guys a rundown of some of our public education opportunities and engagement opportunities that we are currently working on for the city of West Hollywood. So LA County Fire Department has created a new position, and it's called Community Risk Reduction Captain. And so this captain, he's responsible for implementing all of our public education and preparedness programs across the entire county, which is a very large area. Obviously, there's 9 divisions. So he's been working with the Community Services Liaisons, which is my position in each of the 9 divisions, to kind of rebuild and reinvigorate all of the programs that were put on hold due to COVID. So going down the list of these things, we have Cert Training. Obviously, Cert, Community Emergency Response Teams, is a big portion of our public education. And we're planning to start scheduling new Cert classes after the new year, depending on, the COVID situation. It's fluid still, but we've purchased a volunteer management software program. The county has purchased a license with this software. I believe it's called Galaxy Digital, but the purpose of it is to keep track of all of our Cert members once they've completed the training. And we're hoping that this will allow us to communicate with Cert members after they've completed the training, and we can actually utilize these Cert members and use them for like large events, or if there's a major incident, we can actually bring our Cert members out and make use of them rather than completing the training and never actually using the skills that they've learned. So that's our hope, is that once we start scheduling these classes, and then people either that have completed the class previously or will complete the class can join this volunteer tracking, and we can communicate with them more. And then in addition to the entire Cert course, which is like a 9-module course that can take multiple weeks to complete, we are planning on doing more specific emergency preparedness training. So training for people that can't go through or don't want to go through an entire Cert course. So like more one-off sessions that are more concise, covering various topics such as like hands-only CPR, our FIRE program, which stands for Family Instructions for Rapid Escape. And that's focused on preparedness for home fires. And we plan to do these trainings with individual groups, either HOAs, apartment buildings, senior groups, any group that wishes to have one of these trainings, we can do. And I know that we've done a lot of these in West Hollywood in the past with various senior groups or apartment buildings. So hopefully we can use these as a way to get to people that don't necessarily want to do Cert, but just want to learn about being prepared. And then the last thing that we've been working on is our Fire Explorers program. And this was also put on hiatus at the beginning of the pandemic. This is for young people who are ages 15 to 22, who are interested in either becoming a firefighter or just interested in a career in emergency services in general. And once they meet the program requirements, they'll be assigned to a post location at a fire station. And then they can learn all about all the facets of the fire service, and then eventually participate in an Explorer Training Academy. We're currently still working out the details to get this back up and running, and where the exact post locations would be within each division. But this has been something that has been very successful and engaged a lot of community members in the past. So we're hoping that we can get this up and running. So these are the main programs that I've been focused on recently, but I'm also open to any suggestions from you guys or any ideas for ways to like engage and educate West Hollywood residents in general. That's all I have.
Commissioner comments? I have one. This is outstanding. These are super good suggestions. And Kristen, could you log those and put them somewhere, like maybe on our work plan somewhere that we can keep a track of those because they're so good. Table exercises via Zoom meetings. Have you thought of those? Because as soon as we graduated from the CERT class, we were trying to keep our own organization together. And that's one thing that was super good, is those table exercises. Your mind is working that way.
We have done those in the past, so that was definitely something that we can work to set up.
We might get a lot of people involved in those. In fact, as you probably know, LA County, LA City, they exchange with us, with our groups, and they always offer, if they have empty seats, our people, they invite us a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen the table exercises done by them. They do a really good job on some other things. We might be able to invite them in exchange because we haven't done that, but that would be super good. And then Kristen and our commission, can we start thinking of a way to get the word out to these groups, these buildings, these apartment buildings, these senior groups or whatever, to see if they're interested to have you guys come and teach these things. Do we want to put that on an agenda, Kristen, or can we find a way to get that out? Or our commissioners, do you guys want to discuss how we can get that information out to people?
So Chair, that's pretty basic stuff for us. At the building, we have staff inside City Hall who are already linked with our especially vulnerable buildings. We need to get through this last iteration of the pandemic before we start bringing lots of groups of people together inside. A lot of these buildings, have vulnerable folks who may not want to go to a park, to have one of these sessions. But we offered, several types of on-site sheriff fire trainings for folks. We just need to start that all back up again. And I love Megan's ideas and plans. We're taking it to a whole new level of professionalism, and I'm thankful for her. She's really thinking this through on how to reach all of our population. So I'm grateful for that.
And the WeHo research group, we'll probably want to get to them and those guys. In fact, our previous graduates from CERT about this Explorer program possibility, and we might want to get to these. I don't know, the rent stabilization, that newsletter that goes out, you may want to say anybody interested, and if they make a request, they need to have a minimum of a certain amount of people that are going to show up. I don't know, these are things that we can all look at, Kristen.
Yes, and there's lots of ways to get folks involved. The Explorer program is a youth program. In the past, West Hollywood has not had a post at Station 7 or 8 because of the link to the Boy Scouts, who had some issues with our LGBT community, and the city chose not to host a post. So I would need to investigate a little bit more with our city attorney to see if those, in my opinion, antiquated policies are still around. I had heard that
there had been some updates to their policies. So that's something we can definitely look into and make sure that
that would be great, Megan. But yeah, just to clarify, Chair, the Explore program is for kids. It's a youth program. For research, I see feeding them into Megan's new volunteer system once that's up and running, and then we can design all types of, education again, whether we start on Zoom for a while or bring people together outside for a session. We've got lots of options.
Very good, very good. I don't want to let this go, so let's just keep on this and we'll follow through. Any more commissioner comments, questions? Thank you for all the time you put into that. We really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Let's move on to the sheriff's report. No, that's block by block. Do you have anything special, Shay, that you don't need to read through everything? We
Right.
got that, but do you have anything? I know you guys were going to work with the sheriff. You guys were going to try to get together and talk about some ideas that you had.
Yeah, so I actually, sorry, excuse me. So good evening, everyone. So I actually did get with Lieutenant Mulder, and we went over a few things in regards to the kiosk, the location, how we should be possibly handling that situation to keep the guys as safe as possible. We were waiting and vamping up for the kiosk, waited quite a while for the delivery, but it finally came. So we do have it out now. It is basically located, it's not exactly on the corner of La Brea and Santa Monica. It's kind of a little bit in between, I would say, the Dillon and Burger Boss. So it's kind of in between there. Reason being, I wanted the guys to have their back up against the wall versus too much space and too much availability as far as being able to possibly come behind them or do anything to them if they're not paying that close of attention. So we did work on that, and that's going fairly well. We did secure a location to store the kiosk, which will be a Massage Envy. They've been working with us, and I'm very appreciative of that. Also, I've been trying to speak to the teams about what seems to be, or what feels like a different type of temperament that's flowing through the district as of late. And I think it comes from the fact that people are nervous and they're scared and they're seeing new faces and new vehicles and things of this nature. Also, we've been receiving quite a few calls in regards to people that look like they're staking out homes and things of that nature. So we've been responding to those. I responded to one of the calls myself and experienced that this stuff is really happening. I pulled up behind a gentleman. We were patrolling, myself and one of my supervisors were patrolling in our truck. And this is we were responding to a call. A guy was parked inside of an alley. This was off of North Poinsettia. A guy was parked inside of an alley. And the caller had said that they felt that this person had been out there. They don't know what parks there. He's looking suspicious. He may be casing the place. I'm here with my 85-year-old father, excuse me. So we responded to the call again. Once we pulled up behind the person kind of left the alley slowly, made a left, so he was traveling north. Didn't want to go to the turnaround. So he drove into someone's parking driveway, turned around, faced us, but headed straight for us as if he wanted to engage in a game of chicken. So we stopped the vehicle. He swerved around us. Maybe that was an intimidation factor. I don't know. I'm not sure. Car had no plates. I placed a call to Lieutenant Mulder to get an idea exactly how he would like us to go about this. We went down to the police station, filed a report, which would help with the investigation that they're already under. So those are basically the things that's been going on in our day-to-day things that we do. We've also received a request to possibly increase ambassador presence during the holiday seasons. So I've been working on staffing with that as well.
Nice report. Commissioner comments, questions? Commissioner Oliver.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the report. I just wanted to see from the block by block perspective how the engagement is going with the kiosk.
So far it's been kind of basic. A lot of people are asking more about Metro times. When is the bus bench going to come back? Things like that. So we haven't really faced any type of situations as far as any assaults or any type of social service us providing anything like that. I'm sure it will come. We have proactively, before the kiosk even came down there, we started to post up down there a little bit just so we can get ready to show our presence down there and not run into any type of mishaps or anything like that. People will already be used to seeing us down there. And also the sheriff's has been patrolling around there as well. So it kind of cleared the area a little bit already before we brought the kiosk out. But we still have situations, of course, where transients come along and do the things that they do. But we haven't had any issues or have been asked any kind of questions or anything like that in regards to public safety as of yet. But I'm sure they're coming.
Any more? Shay, I know you guys, Vice Chair O'Shea.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Shay. I'm wondering if there's anything your team needs from us in terms of support or from the Sheriff's Department, et cetera, that has come up in these conversations recently.
Not as of yet. I mean, the only thing that I always stress is just the need for the public to know how to utilize our services. That's really about it. Other than that, you guys have been great with the support that you have showed us. So we're fine for that. I mean, definitely, if I come up with something that a light bulb goes off in my head, I will definitely reach out.
Okay, and I know that that's on our radar in terms of how do we better educate the population in terms of better use. So
Thank you.
we are working on that slowly but surely. Thank you, Shay.
Commissioner Hallman, I saw your hand go up for quickly. No?
Yes, no, I do have a question for Shay. Thank you, Chair. Shay, has there been a change in the type of calls that Block by Block is responding to?
Yes. Well, so we still have the same basically transient response type calls, but we are starting to receive more calls that are in a more of a violent nature. People seem to be having more weapons, things of that nature, or people in cars with masks on, stuff like that. So we always get the sheriffs involved in those things. But yes, we have received quite a few calls or an increase in calls of a different nature, that type of nature.
Okay, and another question aligned with that. Are you still responding to residential as well as business calls? Because, someone came to me and they said, oh, Block by Block is not responding to residential like they once were. They're focused more on business. So I would like to get some clarifications on that.
So from my understanding, since I've been here, the priority has always been Santa Monica Boulevard first, but we do still respond to calls from residents in the neighborhoods. Example, I responded to one, like I was just giving you an example of the other day on Poinsettia. So we're still doing that as we're receiving the calls. Our patrols are a little bit lighter in the neighborhoods so that we can have more presence on the boulevards. So the patrols, they'll usually go in and out of the neighborhoods a little bit quicker than they would in the past. But that's because we're getting so many calls from so many different places. And I'm just trying to get the guys, everywhere as fast as I can.
Okay.
Try to service everybody as fast as I can and as best I can.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any more? Shay, I know you guys were going to try to work on some creative solutions with the sheriff about, you had a little bit of a bottleneck where you guys were then going to have to call the sheriff, or you were going to ask the people, and that slowed things down. I don't know if you guys have come up with any creative things. I know you're really going to have to get creative because the sheriff has some certain things that they can and can't do.
Yeah, we just have to carve out the time to be able to do that. They've been very busy, and we've been extremely busy as well. But as soon as we get an opportunity to do that, I'm sure we will try to find something, try to figure out something. Good.
Thank you. Any more? Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to, thank you. Sheriff's report.
Hi, good evening,
Lieutenant
everybody. Hope. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Everybody. Fantastic. So for November of 2021, Part 1 crime was up 77% with 211 incidents when compared to last November of 2020 with 119 Part 1 crimes. The year-to-date Part 1 crimes percentage is up 18% when compared to the same time last year. The west side of town is up 110%. Center City is up 37%, and the east side was up 59%. Part 1 crime breakdown, like where they occurred throughout the city in November, 55% of the Part 1 crimes occurred on the west side, 21% in city center, and 24 on the east side. Again, for November of 2021, vehicle burglaries, grand theft, and some robberies kind of drove the numbers. There were 37 vehicle burglaries last month and 45 felony grand thefts, which included cell phones that were taken from clubs, shoplifting, and catalytic converters. Vehicle burglaries were similar in location and type of property as those that occurred when we had those organized crews coming into town. So we're monitoring that, and we'll be addressing that with our teams. Petty theft also was up about 57%. We moved our footbeat schedule around a bit. I know that has been some talk with the commission, and so there will be a footbeat on the east side and west side of town 6 days a week. They'll be at different hours for the different sides of town, but we'll have people out there every day rather than just kind of over the weekend times on day shift and PM shift. We continue to conduct saturation patrols and plainclothes operations and other types of operations with our cops and entertainment policing teams. We've run several recent robbery suppression operations with both teams, and some other, and we've also addressed some other crimes and different operations in the past month. We continue to monitor the situation created by the marijuana dispensary Cookies, which is located in the city of Los Angeles on Melrose Avenue and Kings Road. There's no issues to report for November. And since we've had like multiple months wherein we haven't had any reportable issues, I maybe asked if it's the pleasure of the commission to maybe remove this item from the agenda. We also have put out on our social media and other links about avoiding street robberies, nightclub safety, fire safety, mail theft issues, and some other information that's helpful for our community. On December 8th, patrol deputies came across a grandmother who was 79 years old, her daughter who's 40, and the granddaughter who's 21. They were sleeping in their car near Plummer Park, and it was that particular evening was quite cold. And so deputies at that hour, unfortunately, couldn't find resources in terms of place for them to go. So deputies paid for a hotel room for them for the night. And the next day, Sergeant Lapkin then tried to coordinate with our social services and social contracts, our contracts to coordinate with all three of those individuals to help get them some housing and off the street. Also, actually, it's December 1st we did this. It wasn't November, but since it's timely, I'll discuss it. We did a nightlife safety operation on Wednesday, December 1st. Deputies from the West Hollywood Station cops team and entertainment policing team, along with detectives from our Narcotics Bureau and the DEA, which are some of those members were part of the high intensity drug trafficking areas, HIDTA task force. We conducted an undercover operation in West Hollywood regarding nightlife safety. The focus of it was on, of course, issues about drugging in some of our nightlife establishments, and also pickpocketing issues. That evening, no violations were observed and no arrests were made. We will continue to run these undercover operations just to maintain the safety of our nightlife for our people that come here to enjoy themselves. Also, last week, we had members from our entertainment policing team and our cops team, as well as members from our major crimes team with the sheriff's department, conducting other undercover operations to address the robberies that have been occurring in the LA area. Deputies from our entertainment policing team stopped a vehicle. As they were approaching the vehicle backed up and tried to ram them, but instead hit the patrol vehicle. Deputies were able to detain all three people in the car. They found multiple guns in the car and stolen merchandise, and they were arrested for reasonable cause robbery. And we suspect that they were might be involved in some of the other robberies that occurred around LA County. Also on December 9th, as part of the same operation, the undercover operation we were conducting with regard to the robberies, members of our entertainment policing team arrested a male who had a ghost gun, and there were also 2 other individuals with him. Those 2 people were not arrested. They weren't found to be in possession of a gun or in a violation of any other crime. We believe that that individual might also have something in connection with the robberies that have been occurring. I'd like to thank our Public Safety Director, Kristen Cook, for giving us the flexibility to conduct some of these operations and change around our footbeat to make it more often during the week, obviously 6 days a week. Also, we will be starting up again our Community Academy, which is a 6 to 8 week course, meets maybe once or twice a week, depending on how many weeks we're running it, and gives people from the community an opportunity to come and learn about what we do in law enforcement, and also to go at the end of it to go on a ride along with someone from our department. And so we'll probably be starting it next year once we're COVID ready to do so. And for our inaugural class, we'd love to have the Public Safety Commission go through an abbreviated class. I know how busy everybody is, but it'd be great if you would all like to be our inaugural class for that. It'd probably be very informative for everybody. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions. Kristen, can you tag that that academy with probably next to the fire list that we have? Commissioner Balbon.
Thank you for the update, Lieutenant Mulder. It was very good. I wonder if we're seeing any increase in some of the activities at our bars and nightclubs in terms of, it looks like pickpocketing might be down, but I saw a report that there was an incident over at the Doheny Room, and I'm wondering, are we seeing a pickup of people assaulting folks outside of clubs and after hours?
Yeah, so to both of those questions, in terms of the pickpocketing for last month, the cell phone thefts were indeed up. I think, let me just circle back to the number that I talked about. Then I think we had, we had 45 grand thefts, and there were various types. In terms of the cell phone theft, they were not 45, there were less, but I can I'll have to search through my information to get that exact number. But with regard to aggravated assaults after clubs closing, I don't know offhand what that number would be, or if that has actually gone up. I can check though.
Okay, thank you.
And when you check, can you email Kristen and we can get that all to the public safety commissioners?
I will.
Okay, thank you. Adam, let's hang on a second. We'll go through the commissioner comments first. Commissioner Roman.
Yeah, hi, Lieutenant Mulder. Would you be able to provide for us?
Mr. Roman.
Would you be able to provide for us a schedule of when these beat cops are actually going to be out there, like specifics, like Monday from 5 to 9, and where they're going to be? If you don't have that information, you can email it over to Kristen Cook so that we're all aware of exactly when they're going to be out and where they're going to be. That'll be super helpful.
Absolutely. I'll email it over to you guys.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Balbon, do you have your hand up still, or do you have another question?
I just have my hand up still. Sorry about that.
Okay, Commissioner Roman too. Okay, any more questions? I have one quick one before Adam Darvish comes. Are you also seeing an increase in violent tone kind of a thing that the block by block are seeing?
Yeah, so in terms of like aggravated assault specifically, there were some numbers that were up in terms of fights, but yeah, we have seen that. I think even to Commissioner Balbone's comments, but I'll get you specific numbers about like when they occurred and where to kind of break it down a little bit better. But I know that through the year, looking that those numbers have increased in terms of aggravated assaults, and I think we've had discussion about that in prior commission meetings. For this past month, if you look at the statistics, the aggravated assaults were let's see, I'm looking for the whole city. They were we had 15 of them compared to 11 last year. So they were up as a percentage, 36%. But through the year, we've seen them up a bit. So that's something we've also been looking at too and addressing with our teams.
Okay. I know that when the sheriff came and Captain Ramirez, and probably you were there a couple of weeks ago, Captain Ramirez was requesting to replace the sergeant. I think it was the sergeant and maybe one more. Kristen may know about this. What happened with that? Did they get their request?
So the at the public safety meeting regarding public safety with the city council, Captain Ramirez had requested to bring back the sergeant to the entertainment policing team and the one deputy to the entertainment policing team. That had been cut last year due to COVID. So that was one of the requests. And another request that Captain Ramirez had made is for a permanent foot beat deputies as well. But to your question, yes, we did request that we get restored that the sergeant for the entertainment policing team and the deputy for the entertainment policing team.
Okay, Kristen, what happened with that?
So as you all know, the city does budget requests during a normal budget season. So most budget changes are effective for July 1. So any requests or even reductions are handled generally in the spring that go to the city manager and then to the city council. So we'll get to it a little bit later on the agenda tonight, but we'll need your recommendations for sheriff staffing. You know, February, we'll talk about it in depth. I'll give you a little reminder in January. Depending on when our budget deadlines are internal, we may even have time to run it by you guys again in March. That said, there's another option to address budget issues, whether increase or decrease at the city's mid-year function, which is usually just a budget update. So for example, with the opening of the new park building in West Hollywood Park, we will be submitting, security ambassador costs, security guard costs, for the AEDs we need to buy for the building. That's something that would typically be done at mid-year, if not at July 1. The third option to change staffing or funding or budgets would be for the city council to make that change. So whether it's initiated by a council office that then goes to debate among all 5 council members.
Okay, you say we're going to get that later in our agenda. I don't see which item that would fall under.
So we're going to talk about your upcoming schedule. If you look at item 10A, Public Safety Commission calendar, and on the calendar that's attached to your agenda tonight, it shows in February that we will be reviewing the current 575, which is the sheriff staffing, which you all have gotten a couple presentations on, and make recommendations for the July 1 budget. So that'd be 2022 to 2023, June 30th, 2023. Goodness, that seems like a long way away. But yes, it's time to do that in February.
Okay, sounds good. Any more questions? Public comment by Adam Darvish. Adam, you have 3 minutes.
Great. Just wanted to thank Lieutenant Mulder for the great job and leadership at our sheriff's station, but also have a question for Lieutenant Mulder. Sorry, I lost my video. This is regarding training for the officers for unconscious bias or any kind of training that would remove any sort of, bias that they may have towards different races, if that's going on now. And also wondered about enforcing sort of traffic enforcements in our city, especially on residential streets, and that you're always available at midnight hours. I'll call you or text you. I really appreciate that. But I want to get your take on that. When would our police force, would go to residential streets and sort of spend time at the stop signs and sort of make sure that the speeds are under control. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Lieutenant Mulder, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And hi, Adam. Hope all is well with you. So yes, we do have the Sheriff's Department does have a unbiased policing policy on the department. We have cultural diversity training on the department. We have, as you may know, we have from Assembly Bill 953, the Racial and Identity Profiling Act. I was the project manager to implement that on the department, and as part of that, as part of the implementation and the training for deputies to complete that information, there's also training on like implicit bias and so forth. So we do have that type of training. It occurs at the academy. That type of training also occurs after the academy for advanced officer training and recurrent training, such as the cultural diversity.
And you guys how long ago did you do the training with Drian? The sensitivity training. Do you guys have that on recording as well, by the way?
So I don't know. I don't think we have that training on recording. I think that's a good idea to do that. Then you can, use it more often. But because of, I know we were connecting during COVID, and because of COVID, we weren't able to make that happen yet. But as something that I think we need to circle back with Drayon and kind of get that set up again. Prior to COVID, with West Hollywood Station, we had a course for all our deputies, Trans 101. So specifically to learn about the trans community and to understand sensitivities towards our trans community.
Okay, thank you. Yola Dore, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners, staff, and honored guests. I'm here tonight as your assistant, if you will, liaisons from the DAB, the Disabilities Advisory Board. I want to let you know that you've been in my thoughts with everything going on. It's really a joy to see you this evening. I don't want to forget to wish each and every one of you the warmest and best holiday season ever, hopefully an improving holiday season. I hope you'll stay safe, and I hope you'll stay connected with the Disabilities Advisory Board. While I'm saying that, I'd like to let you know we are the most unrecognized minority out there. So when people speak of minorities, they speak of those with disabilities. We number about 4,900 in West Hollywood as of record. So know that we're amply coming to you and interested in what you've got to say. And hopefully you will have someone attend some of our meetings and stay connected. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yola Dore. And I don't know if you got it, the presentation from the mobility. If not, I'll send it to you and Chair Blood. You can email me and I'll send you my notes on that. Any more questions? Okay. By the way, if I miss any of you people and I don't see you, just blurt out because sometimes I'm looking away. Okay. Update on impacts from cookies. Do we have anything, staff?
So Chair, Lieutenant Mulder mentioned it briefly in his report that it's been quiet the last few months. So what we would suggest is that we remove it from the agenda officially, but that Lieutenant Mulder can always give an update during the regular sheriff report. And if something changes with the neighborhood, we could definitely put it back on the agenda.
That sounds good. Thank you. And I see Lisa here. I don't know if that's the same Lisa that comes from Cookies, but if it is, we appreciate it. And if it isn't, we appreciate Lisa being here. Okay, 9F, Public Safety Commission Work Plan Update.
I had a quick question.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So I know at one point we were actively seeking some type of civic action through the supervisors and or other regulatory bodies in the city of Los Angeles. Are we still pursuing those, or has that diminished? I just would like to be clear on kind of where that sits, because I know at one point we were very interested in understanding if the license for Cookies would be renewed.
So Commissioner Balbona, as you're aware, that's under the control of the city of Los Angeles. So really our role as City of West Hollywood is kind of directing those complaints to the city of Los Angeles for their follow-up, for their cannabis regulation hearings and that type of thing. Again, fingers crossed that it continues to be quiet and Cookies is a good neighbor to those next to them, and it'll stay peaceful for now.
Okay, so we're not actively petitioning anyone from the city of LA at this point.
Our folks are still in touch with city of LA.
Okay.
But right now there's not a lot of information to exchange, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yep. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Balbone. Adam, I don't know if your hand is up on this one as well, but I got to go through the commissioners first. Commissioner Roman?
Yeah, just really quick. I'm not sure why we're always talking about the cookies thing, but I know that it was a problem at one point, and just so everybody's aware, there's 40. Let me just make sure. There's 40 new 40 new cannabis permits headed for for approval for our city. So I'm all for people smoking pot that really want to smoke pot, people that need it because they're, for medical reasons, but approving or potentially approving 40 new marijuana stores in the city of 1.3 miles is a bit insane. My opinion on it is, pot makes people lazy. And it doesn't, I don't know what that's going to do for our community or what good that has to do. I feel like we have enough marijuana shops in this town already. So I don't know if there's a way for us to kind of send a message to council, like, are you guys insane to even think about approving 40 new shops like this? So I just wanted to go on record with that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Roman. I'm trying to think about if there is, how that's going to fit, will that fit under our purview? And if you wanted to try to make a motion to agendize something like that, or you just want to contact city council yourself?
Yeah, I'll shoot them an email. It's quicker.
Okay, thanks.
Either way.
Okay, and if you can think about it and cite the purview number under there, and you want to bring it up for us to agendize, you can. Public comment. Commissioner Balbone.
So, in line with what Commissioner Roman has just talked about is we've seen some unique issues around some of our marijuana-based businesses, and it is going to be a different business model. Partnering with them in addition to our nightlife, particularly those that are going to be doing cannabis on site. We know we've got people who take advantage and pickpocket. So I think that we should, at least in our commission, think about what are the needs and are we concerned about any public safety issues tied around the cannabis use. And I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I do think we should agendize it at some point so that if there are going to be that many businesses, how are we preparing to ensure that public safety is front of mind and that we're including those businesses in what we do already with several of the other businesses in our community.
Okay, do you want to, Commissioner Balbone, do you want to bring that up later in a meeting if it comes to happen, or?
Yeah, I think we should monitor it and just probably make sure that if we have thoughts or ideas that we bring them forward at another meeting.
Okay, so we'll see what happens with City Council on that, and then we can always consider that. So we have Commissioner Roman, is your hand still up, or do you have another question? Okay, public comment by Lisa. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you very much, Chair Berger and commissioners. And I want to give a special thanks to Lieutenant Mulder and Sergeant Lapkin, who we've been dealing with. And I'm very pleased to be off your agenda, although I have to say I've developed a real fondness and I really enjoy hearing what, as a resident of LA, what my neighbor West Hollywood is doing. We will continue to have conversations and email weekly, Lieutenant Mulder and Sergeant Lapkin, as we do with LAPD, and remain available to absolutely address any issues that come to law enforcement or the city of West Hollywood. To address Ms. Cook's comment, actually, I would urge the commissioners to reach out to Lauren Langer, city attorney, who's been monitoring the case against Cookies brought by the city of LA, and with the support, obviously, of West Hollywood. That case did not win. And so Cookie's license is in good standing. It was always in good standing. It was a question of whether or not it was going to be renewed. But Cookies does want to remain a partner with the city of LA and, of course, our neighbor West Hollywood. So I really sincerely thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa, for coming and attending our meetings. That's the key, communications and staying in touch with us. And if you have any problems with anything, you can come to this commission. Okay, public comment, Adam Darvish. Adam, is your hand still up from previously, or do you have a public comment? Okay, and Lisa, your hand is still up. Okay, I think Adams is probably still up from previously. Okay, let's move on to 9F, Public Safety Commission Work Plan Update of the city's emergency plan, and only yes means yes public education campaign.
So Chair, we have Margarita with us this evening from Public Safety, who will give you just a 30-second update on the emergency plan update and what we need from you all as the commission going forward. And then she will also give you a reminder of Thursday's event on the Only Yes Means Yes campaign.
Well, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Well, good evening, Chair Berger, Vice Chair O'Shea, Commissioner Balbone, Commissioner Holman, Commissioner Oliver, Commissioner Roman, and Commissioner Soon-Shiong. My name is Margarita Kostanovich, and I am the Emergency Management Coordinator. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for all that you do for our community and staff. Today, I would like to ask if anyone is interested in working with the public safety staff, including myself, on updating the emergency preparedness plan that has been developed in compliance with the state standardized emergency management system. and the National Incident Management System. Your input and feedback would be highly appreciated, and I am happy to share the files with you all during the process. The Public Safety Commission will need to select 2 commissioners to work on this plan. This emergency plan will address the City of West Hollywood planned response to extraordinary emergency situations associated with natural disaster, technological incident, and national security emergency. This plan will prepare the stakeholders across the whole community to work together to prevent, protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from incidents. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to working with everyone. If anyone would like to volunteer to work with me on this plan? Yay!
Great.
We have
Great.
one.
We've got 2.
Yay, that was fast.
Anybody
excited.
else? Okay, we've got Commissioner Hallman and Commissioner Oliver. Excellent. Thank you, guys. It's about 2 inches thick at least, isn't it?
Yeah, expect an email tomorrow morning. Okay, so let me just give you a quick campaign info. Just give me 1 second. So the city will be relaunching its sexual assault awareness and prevention campaign, Only Yes Means Yes, that promotes the important message of consent during the month of December. You are invited to join Block by Block security ambassadors as they distribute the new Only Yes Means Yes beverage coasters to various nightlife. We've already established with 20 businesses with different locations. We will be having, I believe, 10 Block by Block staff member joining us. I think Shay will be joining us as well. Thank you so much. And we have 2 commissioners that will be joining us. Vice Chair Roche will be joining us, and 1 member from another advisory board. Please let me know if anyone else is interested. I'd be happy to put you on my RSVP list. This campaign will be on Thursday, December 16th at 5 p.m. We will meet at West Hollywood Park Auto Court in front of the City Council chamber. The address is 625 North San Vicente Boulevard, West Hollywood, California, 90069. Free on-site parking. Hopefully everyone can join me.
Thank you. And they can contact you. Anybody can contact you if they want to, even last minute. Okay, I know you have women. You've had Women's Advisory Board. You had the press there before. They usually follow around, so it's really fun usually.
Yeah,
Any
Larissa
more?
Folk will be there as well from the advisory board, Women's Advisory Board liaison.
Any comments on the Yes Only Means Yes campaign? I have one. This was a little bit disturbing for me to see this. There was a girl on the at a meeting with the sheriff. It was like a Facebook when they have their meetings, and she said, and I had never heard this before, with Prop 57, which made rape of an unconscious woman, it's not a violent crime, and those eligible are eligible for early parole. And I guess, is that just a misdemeanor? I asked Lieutenant Mulder, I can't remember what you responded to that. But that really, it was a real bother to her. What is that if somebody rapes an unconscious person?
That's a question for Lieutenant Mulder. Are you on the phone?
Lieutenant Mulder? I can look on here and
hi.
see what he said.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't hear me. So there was information, I think that Prop 57, I think there was an unintended consequence of it that made, I think, as you said, rape by a certain category of rape that maybe didn't fall under the serious or violent section of the law, which then constitutes different punishment for that. I think that Sacramento attempted to run legislation to fix that, but I'm not sure where that's at or if that succeeded. I can do some research on that, and I can send you information to give you the exact circumstances, the exact charge that that was under, I think was one of an unintended consequence of, I think, Prop 57.
Okay, thank you. And I think a lot of our commissioners are very interested in this subject. So if you can get that to Kristen and get it to us and any of the public that is listening to this, you can ask Kristen Cook, email her, and we will get that to you as well. Okay, any more questions? Wasn't there I think I saw something recently about another kind of one of these rape kind of a things from one of the Commissioner, Vice Chair Roche, you might know about it.
Well, I just, I appreciate you bringing attention to this. Also, this conversation is highly triggering. I just want to be really transparent. It's really challenging to hold space for this. I would love to integrate these conversations into what I'm so sorry, Commissioner Balbone and I are working on together in terms of our subcommittee. So I would just love it if we could somehow exchange these conversations via email and gather this information, and then we can have a more robust conversation when we're ready to update the commission. I just, it's a lot. And I want to be mindful of any survivors that are also on the call. Thank you.
Good, thank you. So everybody, public too, we are working on this. We have a group working with the Women's Advisory Board as well. Any more comments? Adam Darvish, I see your hand is still up. Maybe are you interested in a public comment? Okay. Let's move on. Okay, so the work plan. Do we want to go through this work plan? Maybe Margarita, can you put that up, and commissioners will just touch on this and look through it of what we have so far. And if we want to put priorities on this, do we want to add to it? Okay, so if you can put that up and we can look through this.
And Chair, what I would suggest, since we are attaching it to your packets every month, is that if commissioners need a little bit more time to take a look, because your two immediate items are the emergency plans. You've given us those two liaisons, so I appreciate that. And then also the sheriff staffing and budget recommendations for July 1. In January, and kind of dipping down into 10A a little bit, Public Safety Commission calendar, we also have a presentation from the Coalition of Economic Survival. That's, again, some of these presentations are directed to come to us, so that's one of these. So that's kind of what's pending. I'm just taking a quick look at the list here. So sheriff staffing and budget emergency plan are the big work plan items for like the next 30 to 60 days.
Staff, who directed that to come to us, that the next speaker and the next, what because I asked Mayor Meister and she said she didn't know about that. What?
I have not shared the January agenda with the mayor at this point. I'd have to look up the email, Tori, just to see. I'm looking, see if I can find it quickly.
Because was that directed by City Council?
So there are lots of presentations and programs that are directed either by council or department heads or whatever to share information across boards and commissions. So you all, I guess, in theory, could decline one, and then I could go back and tell council that you're declining it. And I just don't have that email handy, Chair Berger.
Well, the reason why is because Vice Chair Roche and I asked exactly how agenda items were made, and I think she told us that it has to be created, agendized by a commissioner here, and then we all vote on it, or it's directed by staff. So I know that a lot of our commissioners did not want to have additional speakers unless they all agreed on it.
And Commissioner Roman, I'm just going to mute you just for a sec. So Chair Berger, that would be directed by staff. You know, it's a presentation coming from staff. So like when you hear from code compliance, it's coming from staff, or the dockless mobility update is coming from staff.
Okay, so that's a recommendation, but I understood from the city clerk that they either come from staff, or in our bylaws, it says that we decide on the agenda items.
That's correct. There's both ways, really 3 ways that it can come to the commission. Either you all as a group ask for something on your agenda, staff brings something, and that could mean any city staff, or the city council directs it. Maybe you and I, just since it's getting a little late, could talk offline about this. And if it's a presentation you all want to decline or push, you know, I could talk to the relevant staff at the time to figure that out.
Okay, so maybe we should go through the our priorities on this work plan first, and then you as commissioners, we can have you vote if you want to have this speaker come. Okay, so maybe Margarita, can you scroll through this? Okay, anybody, do we want to, have you guys looked at this, and do we want to go through and prioritize? What are our priorities right now as agenda items? Does anybody want to discuss which of this work plan? How do we want to rack these up and prioritize them? Vice Chair Roche?
So it appears to me that these also have kind of due dates, so to speak. But I also noticed that some of them just say March of 22. So I don't know, I'm kind of following the due dates as a way to prioritize. I know we haven't designated, for instance, under goal 1, we haven't made any designations as far as commissioners on that on that page. And maybe that's a collective effort. Maybe we don't really need a subcommittee, and it's just really about making sure that we as a commission in total are focused on really making that happen. Kristen, what do you recommend in terms of navigating this first goal and these 3 items and have it ready by March?
Sure. So we will have this on kind of just like a quick pass in January, or we could decline that one presentation and really dig into this in January. I do have to check with staff, and I apologize, Chair Berger, I can't find it handy right this second, but they may also be under a deadline to reach various commissions and boards. So I need to do a little research on that and get back to you all on that. The budget,
that was my concern.
The budget is a hard deadline discussion because we need your input to be able to wrap it into our recommendations to the city manager, which then generally goes to a city council budget subcommittee of 2 council members, and then go the larger council. So that we don't have any wiggle room on. You know, by February's meeting, we really need the commission's recommendations on sheriff staffing for July 1. With regard to the emergency plan, we will, work with our 2 volunteers tonight. Thank you both, to get you rolling on that, and we can have an update for you January, February as well. Also, with regard to the budget, any type of changes to block by block staffing, PAC West staffing, those are our fixed post security guards that you see at the parks and city facilities. If Strategic Initiatives has another update for us on behavioral health, we'll bring that to you all. And again, I would recommend that you not decline that type of presentation and let staff come and present to you on that. But those are really the 2 immediate things, the emergency plan and the budget.
Okay, sounds good. And the question regarding special, guest speakers at our next meeting, I cannot find the document that has all of our speakers per month broken down. My apologies. So I'm wondering what is on that list for January.
For January, we have presentation from the Coalition for Economic Survival.
Oh, that was it. Okay, sorry.
Fellow city staff, no problem. And just regular reports. That's all we have for January. During the regular sheriff's report, we were going to talk just a little bit about reminding you all it's post holidays, look at your 575s, and let's have kind of more robust discussion in February. So in February, we have review the current 575 and make recommendations for the 2022-23 budget, review security contract staffing and make recommendations for the budget, and then the regular commission reports, because the budget discussions could be lengthy. And then March is open. Right now, we just have regular slated reports, and I've left that open just in case we need more time on the budget issues, assuming that it still makes our internal deadlines.
Right. Well, that's to my point. There's a part of me that wonders if we need to shift it, and I'll give ourselves the opportunity to take the time in January and push back the speaker 1 month so we can meet that deadline for the budget. Because the budget's, that's, in my opinion, the priority. And since our agendas are fairly lengthy, it might be, unless this speaker regarding economic, what's the full title?
Coalition for Economic Survival.
Okay, Coalition for Economic Survival. I may not be able to say that 3 times fast. Is pertinent or directly impact our conversation around our budgets. I'm just trying to see. Can I hear from other commissioners about this? How they feel?
And I just need to know if they're on deadline. So certain times departments have projects and they're told, please go. Russian Advisory Board, LGAB, and Public Safety and report back, right? So, and I don't want to waste too much time tonight debating that because I can't answer that for you tonight.
Okay, sounds good.
Figure out exactly who it was because I apologize, I just can't remember.
Okay, all right, we can wait till the next meeting to decide.
Get you guys rolling. Now, if you guys are ready to really dig into the budget, that January meeting, what I'll do is I'll put it on the agenda, but that means that you all need to do your homework between now and then and be ready. I will say the first meeting after the holidays, usually folks have had fun for the last 3 weeks instead of done their reading, and I'm 100% supportive of that. But that's why I have it on the February meeting. But I will add it to January, and if you guys are ready to go, we'll get into it.
I feel like I put my foot in my mouth.
No, you're always great.
No, I just think maybe we should hear from the other commissioners before I oversee.
No, you're. Here's an alternative. When we had a presentation that I was actually on with the Senior Advisory Board, they did the presentation, and then I sent it to you all. I sent all of the notes to you all, and maybe we can have something like that where we can say, okay, there's the presentation. They gave it to somebody else. Then we get all of the notes. They just show up. They don't have to walk through that same duplicate presentation again to us. And then we just start asking questions if they're available, if we have questions on it.
I love that idea.
Did you guys like that how we did that before with the mobility? It can save us time, and I think a lot of the questions we can pre-plan, and the public will have access to that too on the agenda. So they have access, and we all just start right away with questions. And we also have the advantage of the questions that the previous commission asked, and we can go from there. Do you all like that? Anybody that doesn't like that? Okay, let's go with that, Kristen.
And Chair, I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. I've got to talk to city staff before I can give you an answer for sure. I don't know if they're on deadline to reach us, what it is. I hear you. If that's an option, that's what we'll go with for sure.
Okay, yeah, because our commissioners wanted to get really lean and efficient, and from what I remember that we got
about this offline in the name of efficiency, kind of move on.
Okay.
But I will definitely look into this and find, the most streamlined option I can give you all.
Okay. Secondly, we had another one, and I personally, I totally agree with Vice Chair Roche. I think that the budget is crucial, and the sooner that we can get on it, the better. And we could always, if we didn't finish in our January meeting or whatever, we can brush up on it in our subsequent meetings, because that was our 4-hour meeting before. So I think that we want, personally, I think we should get on that. That's the meat for us. Does anybody else have any comments on that? Commissioner Hallman?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree. I think we should get this on our January meeting. However, can we focus what that's going to be so we know what we are needing to attack with the budget? Like, what will be our target focus for our January meeting? Kristen, so we know if we have literature we have to read, how we can prioritize.
So what I would recommend between now and January is that you take a look at the Sheriff 575, and I'll resend it to everybody. Margarita also created kind of like a SharePoint Dropbox for all of you. And we are loading files into there. So that's another way that you can take a look at things. And what that 575 lays out is how the station is staffed. There were also a couple attachments we attached to this agenda tonight that we included November 15th to City Council that we thought we'd call your attention to. It's the historic staffing levels of the station and some of the other items. So what we're looking from all of you is, does the staffing feel like it's the right level? Yes, no, more, less, so kind of a basic question, but you really have to do your homework in order to answer that question, if that makes sense.
So we had the sheriffs with the 575 come before. It took a long time. And don't forget that takes 8 months for one of their people to understand that, usually. So we have all of those notes. Vice Chair Roche and I went over that, I don't know how many times, that whole meeting, and we got detailed notes on that. We can look at that, and maybe we can pre-question, if we have some questions for him more about the staffing, maybe we can email those and then bring them back. That might save us some time, and that would go in with the public record as well. I'm just thinking, because it's not easy to understand exactly how that staffing works, but I think that we can do it if we bullet point what all of the notes that we took, and then if we have more questions for him, what do you all think about that?
So, Chair, are you asking for contract law representatives to come back? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think we need them to come back. I think that he offered it. He said that we can ask him questions.
Yes, if you email me questions, I could send them to the lieutenant and get answers back for you all.
Okay, so Vice Chair Roche and I maybe we'll organize what we have, all of those notes again, so you can look at them, and then you can ask questions, and then the answers, I think that won't violate the Brown Act. If we all see them, we just cannot discuss or comment on those together until we are in the meeting and the public has the ability to comment as well. Is that correct, staff?
That's correct. And I will send answers back to you all in a BCC form, so we don't start an email chain. But if it's just like fact-based questions, it's appropriate for you all to ask, and we can answer ahead of the meeting and refresh it at the meeting.
Okay, great. And if we need to, if we didn't feel like all of our questions were answered, maybe we can invite him. But I think let's try first with just going about it this way to save us some time. Okay, does everybody agree with that? Anybody doesn't like that idea or have some ideas? Okay, that's a consensus on that. The other one I wanted to bring up is we did have on our special meeting, I think, or one of our meetings, we wanted to bring up to agendize at a further meeting was the policies. I don't know where it was, if it's on this or it's on that completed chart that we did. It was about the Prop 40, Prop 57 and all of those.
Yes, and Chair, our legislative analyst, Hernan Molina, looked into this a little bit for us, and he has shared a couple of reports that are online that I can share with all of you. Again, this is something that's kind of way beyond the Public Safety Commission. It's state law. But what he suggested is that I send you the online links that he thinks may be helpful. You all can take some time to read and digest that, and then kind of see what you would like to do after that.
That sounds great. And then we can formulate our questions. And I'm not sure if we want to do that or try to fit that in on January as well. What do you guys think? Any comments? I don't know if we can fit that in. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's too much, honestly. To Commissioner Holman's point, I think we really need to keep our eye on a target. And I think the budget's going to be plenty.
Okay, I agree. Anybody else have some discussion ideas about that?
I agree. Also, I think we need to focus on staying focused so we can achieve the important tasks at hand.
Very good point, Commissioner Holman. I am hoping that what we do in this commission is landing with the City Council. I would like to get some feedback from the things that we recommend and see if it's landing with them, because otherwise, what are we doing? Okay, so if maybe staff, if you can send those things from us to us from Hernan, and we can look at it, maybe we can get a lot of that done in between, I mean, beforehand. And so we'll see, we might not have a lot of questions, I don't know, but we can do a lot of that on our own through the email and read through it and ask questions to him.
Yes, I'll forward you what he sent to me.
Okay, commissioners. Margarita, do you have any, y'all have any questions or priorities on this page here? Margarita, do you want to go through, scroll down if nobody has any?
I have one comment, and it's related to the topic of the staffing. When you look through some of the materials that were included with tonight, it looks like per resident, we have a high ratio. And I know that when the sheriff spoke on November 16th, there was a session up on the One Hotel. I didn't attend, but I listened in via the electronic link. I couldn't get there, but they talked about the ratios being so high that was prohibitive to doing community policing and having people on foot patrol. And to Commissioner Roman's comments earlier, I think as part of understanding and making suggestions on staffing levels, I know I'd like to push on the fact that we have a higher ratio than the rest of the county, and as part of that, we should be able to direct more activity. So I just want to make sure that that's something that when we're looking at those ratios, we're also looking at what we as residents have said, and any information about the plan from the sheriffs currently on foot patrols and beat patrols is included, and if it's not, I mean, I guess we will make a recommendation either way, but that's one of the things that I'm tuned in on and focused on, because I've heard it talked about by various commissioners here. I've heard it talked about by residents, and it appears that we are making an investment per resident to have a higher ratio of staffing here in the city. So we need to make sure that that is conducive to what we're looking for.
So Lieutenant Mulder, and you all, I took a lot of notes on that. I can send them all to you guys. I tried to make it concise of that November 16th meeting. Lieutenant Mulder, I believe it was, there's 4 cops per 1,000 in New York, metropolitan areas. If I remember right, it was 3.5. And for LA County, it was 0.9, under 1. Are you familiar with the ratio in West Hollywood per 1,000, if I'm right on those numbers.
Yeah, so I think you are correct on those numbers, but I'm not sure what it is in West Hollywood exactly, but we'll get that for you.
Great, thank you. And if you can email that to Kristen, and any of you public that are interested in that too, ask Kristen for it, and otherwise Kristen can get it to all of us commissioners. Okay, any more on this page that we're looking at now? Do you all want to prioritize now, or do you all just want to go ahead with the January meeting on the budget and then look at this? Because I think our January meeting is going to be, we're really going to go with it and put a lot of time into this. I think that's really important. Do you guys want to go through and prioritize now, or should we just wait until January after that?
Chair, I'd recommend
Vice
getting a budget. And then kind of like, this is a living document. So as we go, and just have folks take a look over the holidays and kind of chip away. If we're successfully finished with our budget conversation, then you all can kind of pick like the next 2 or 3 things to tackle that aren't time sensitive.
I agree with Kristen, Chair, that I think at this time, let's just focus on getting through the next 2 months with this budget. And then once we're done, we can decide, we can go from there. And then she'll have more feedback from staff as well and regarding speakers and deadlines, etc.
I agree. Does anybody else disagree with that? Do you want to make any comments? Okay. Commissioner Hallman brought up a really good point. We want to know exactly what I mean, a little bit more than the broad about the budget. It's going to be the 575. And it's going to be about the levels of block by block too. And so what would we do? Would we hit each one of those, PAC West, block by block, 575, and the health crisis unit? Would we hit all 4 of those kind of one by one?
3 of them. Sorry, just to clarify, Chair, it'd be 3 of the 4 are under our purview. The behavioral health crisis unit, that's again an ongoing thing. So I would recommend going back and reading their update to council on November 15th. If staff have anything additional to add, we can share that with you in January, but their most recent update was that council meeting was huge. Like, I would really recommend that all 7 of you go back and read those staff items from November 15th, and it will help give you a foundation for how you want to think about staffing in the future for all of those things. But under your purview is block by block, PAC West, and the sheriff.
Okay, everybody, that is in, and thank you, Margarita, and Kristen, whoever put this together for us. That it's not Dropbox, but it's OneDrive, I think. And if you all got that, if you didn't get it, let us know, because all of those documents are in there for us, and there's probably at least 20 of them. So we're going to
Margarita set that up for you.
Margarita. Kristen, I don't know. I think you did a really good job hiring her, from what I've seen so far.
Always get people around you who are smarter than yourself. That's
not true. I'm very, very lucky too. So I'm very happy. I'm learning so much. So I'm very happy to be in this team. Thank you.
She's always good to get an email from. It's uplifting. Okay, any more questions? I think we're done with the work plan. Do you? Anybody disagree? Okay, we got January set up, and let's move on then. Items from staff.
So Chair, we've already talked about 10A, so nothing additional. Thank you.
Okay, public comments? No? Commissioner comments? Does anybody have anything about their liaison reports? How are those subcommittees going? No? Okay. Oh, Vice Chair Roche.
I'll make a quick one. We're in the process, the joint subcommittee with the Women's Advisory Board. We're still working on setting a date for our first committee. So it looks like it's gonna be set for January. It originally was in December, but not all members were able to attend. So to be determined.
Good, thank you. And for this, the emergency plan, can you keep us updated on that when you guys are going to meet and start to work on that? Maybe just touch on that our next meeting, if you guys did a little bit on, it's going to be a big job. And by the way, I have the emergency plan from Virginia. I have a friend there who sent me theirs, if you all want to look at that too. They're one of the top in the country for what they do. Okay. Any more commissioner comments? Okay, adjournment. I don't think we need a motion for that, do we, Kristen? We're adjourned. Okay, thank you, guys.
Happy holidays, everybody. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Yes,
Have a
happy
good-
holidays.
Be well.
everyone.
Take care.
Enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.